Hi, I'm Sean, a finance nerd, and today you're going to learn about how to navigate money conversations and relationships, including how to talk about money with your partner and friends, and why we all might benefit from a little financial interdependence. And I'm joined in this conversation by Nicole Lapin, a personal finance journalist and host of the Money Rehab podcast. Nicole, welcome to Smart Money.
Thanks so much for having me, Sean.
Let's start by talking about money and romantic relationships. A lot of people might have a hard time bringing up money in a relationship for a variety of reasons. Like they might not have the right vocabulary for a money conversation, or a money conversation can quickly become a highly emotional situation. How do you suggest people have more productive financial conversations with their partners?
I think there's never really a good time to have this talk. I would just say make some time and get it done. Don't make it like an IRS audit. Be casual about it. You can sit in a comfy, cozy, private place, talk it out, pour a drink, pour a glass of wine if it makes it easier for you. I mean, it should be aspirational, right? You're ultimately talking about your hopes and dreams, and money is the conduit to achieve those hopes and dreams. So it shouldn't be confrontational. This is about making plans together. This is about dreaming about your future together. There's no reason that it should be a fight. It should just bring you closer. So part of this talk, I think, should be finding out what's really important to you and your boo, your significant other. And these talks should change at every step of a relationship. So, right, they're going to be different when you're just starting to date versus when you're getting engaged and married and, living together. You want to talk about whose names the bills are under, things like that. When you have kids, it's going to be more of an advanced money talk, like wills, advanced directives, all that kind of stuff. So I think that having this open, honest conversation from the get-go makes for a stronger relationship. You'd be surprised how many things money talk brings into focus. So I would just start with really, it's not an interrogation. It's a conversation like, hey, do you want to travel? Do you want to buy a house? Do you want to rent an apartment? Do you want to get married? Do you want to have kids? All these hopes and dreams have price tags. And so I think it's important to figure out the life you want together and then reverse engineer to figure out how to get the money to live that life.
And that's exactly it, because it's not just here we are talking about dollars and what bills we'll be paying. It's here we are as partners who care about each other, who are working towards shared goals. And money is the means that we are going to use to achieve these goals. I think that is really important to keep in mind, is that you're in this together to support each other.
100%. I think that part of the talk is what's your current situation? Honestly, it gets uncomfortable because money comes with so many loaded things that you bring from your childhood or other financial trauma, of course. Maybe you have to admit a bunch of bad money habits. Maybe your partner does. Maybe you have to point out those bad money habits to them, which is probably the most difficult part of this talk. So whatever the situation is, Sean, I think confronting it head on, the earlier the better. As tough as it seems now, it's only going to get harder. It's only going to get tougher if you just sweep this kind of stuff under the rug. Ask the hard questions, be honest with yourself, and go first. I think if your partner is nervous about having these talks and you want to have the talk, you have to go first. With any hard discussion, it's always easier when somebody starts. So let that be you.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point too, because in relationships, a lot of people want to think that things will be perfectly 50-50. Like, oh, I'm going to unload the dishwasher and you'll load it and we'll have this perfect harmonious relationship. When in fact, it always ends up that someone does a little more of the housework than the other person. And it might be that one person ends up being the money person in the relationship. That doesn't mean they should shoulder everything on their own, but it might be on them to bring up these conversations, partially because the other partner might not even be thinking about this, right? So even if you have that role in your relationship, it's worth it to go that extra mile and really bring that sort of infrastructure to your relationship so you can have these ongoing conversations, because everything else in life will be so much easier.
Totally. And it doesn't matter what other people do in their relationship. And maybe it's not 50-50 for you. Maybe it's some other variation. The point of this is figuring out what works for you guys and sticking to that early on. A lot of couples go through hard times or even breakups and divorce because of financial infidelity, which is just like infidelity. Hiding things with money can be just as detrimental and harmful to a relationship as infidelity is in an emotional or physical way.
And if people are new to having these money conversations in a relationship, I think what you mentioned earlier about pouring a glass of wine or going for a nice walk can be really helpful. Setting aside a specific amount of time or a specific activity where you're going to say, hey, let's talk about these things. Let's have some certain things that we want to accomplish. And then we know that at the end of this walk or at the end of this bottle of wine, we're going to move on and do something a little bit more fun, but you can time box it. You can make it something that you're sharing together versus here's this really adult conversation that's going to be scary and difficult and tense. Reframe it. So it's something you actually enjoy doing.
Absolutely. I think that pairing it with an activity that both of you guys like to do is really smart and a really good reframe, and setting that time limit. I had gone to couples therapy in a previous life, and I remember the couples therapist said, after we have this conversation, like, go do something fun. Don't drag this out the entire night. And that's really important to remember, right? Like, this is not a police interrogation. There's no like flashlight in your eye being like, where were you on the night of March 7th? Or what is this charge on your credit card? It's not about judgment. You want to just have the transparency, whatever that is, because it just gets more complicated as, any relationship progresses.
Well, let's talk about times that might be a little more complicated. Maybe when you and your partner disagree about how to manage your money. Like, one partner might want to save up, be really disciplined, and build up a nest egg to buy a house. The other doesn't care about home ownership, wants to go on more vacations, and wants to put their money into that. What do you think are some ways that couples can live with financial differences of opinion and priority and not let it tear them apart?
I think that understanding where you personally rank in order of importance is a key to solving whatever disagreement that is. So if I say, hey, Sean, this issue about buying a home is a 10 for me. I like to rank it from 1 to 10. So have couples say, this is a 5 for me. And maybe to some other person, they had housing insecurity or they have like a lot of trauma around that type of stuff. And this is a 10 for them. And I think in that situation, then the person with the 10 kind of wins. And you can't use it, recklessly and say that everything is a 10, of course, because hopefully you have a better foundation as a couple there. But I think it's important to say like, hey, this is an 8 for me, or, this issue of vacation or cars or whatever, that's like a 2 for me. And so I would just go back and forth as a couple and rank the order of importance for you for whatever reason that is. And a lot of these financial decisions, as you know, Sean, are not about numbers and math and, IRA statements and bank statements and things like that. They're very emotional, So for me, housing is really important because I saw my house get foreclosed on when I was a kid. Or some people might have gone through the housing crisis and had some issue there. Or, I think that this unearths a lot of the reasons that people act the way they do when it comes to money, which can only bring you closer as a couple.
And I think there's also room in that ranking to say, hey, you really care about this thing. I am never going to care that much about it, but I want to find the middle ground between supporting you in whether it's going on more vacations or something more substantial like becoming a homeowner, and letting you do your own thing. Like, I realize I'm not going to be part of that as much. So with my partner and I, he really wanted to buy a house pretty early on in our relationship. And for me, I didn't have the savings. I didn't have the priority, but he had both of those things. And so he was able to buy a house. And that meant that when he was saving up money for that down payment, we didn't go out to eat for dinner as often because I knew he wanted to save more money. So I made smaller changes that allowed him to meet his goals while I knew that it wasn't something that I was personally going to be working on in the same way. So I think that there's a lot of space in relationships to let each person be their own person and then support each individual growing in their own way and achieving their own goals. And you can be their champion along that, even if you're not with them every exact step of the journey.
Yeah, you really don't have to have the exact same goals, but they should be compatible, right? So if yours was wildly incompatible, if you, for some reason, were like, I never want a house, I want to live in a yurt for the rest of my life, Sean, like, I don't know, that maybe wouldn't have worked out well for your partner. But it sounds like you didn't have the same strong feelings as he did. And so you were able to support him in his journey. And that's important for any relationship, It's not about somebody else fixing you or saving you, especially financially. It's about coming together as two whole, complete people and being stronger together. This is a situation where you hope, that 1 + 1 = 3.
Thanks for watching. I'm Sean Pyles, host of NerdWallet's Smart Money Podcast. If you learned something new, hit like and subscribe, or listen to full episodes of Smart Money wherever you get your podcasts.